In the sleepy town of Eldridge Hollow, where the autumn leaves clung to the branches like desperate fingers, lived a boy named Elias. He was 10 years old, with freckles like scattered stars across his nose and a curiosity that burned brighter than the harvest moon. His parents ran a small antique shop on the edge of town, a dusty labyrinth of forgotten relics, cracked porcelain vases that whispered of lost empires, grandfather clocks that ticked backward in the dead of night, and shelves groaning under the weight of toys from eras long buried. Elias wasn't allowed to play with the shop's wares. His mother, Clara, was superstitious, always muttering about echoes of the past clinging to old things. But one rainy October evening, as thunder grumbled like a beast in the clouds, a peculiar item arrived in a splintered wooden crate. It was a carousel horse, carved from rich mahogany, its mane flowing in painted curls of gold and crimson. The horse's eyes were glass orbs, deep sapphire blue, flecked with what looked like tiny silver tears. A brass nameplate on its saddle read "Whisper" in elegant, faded script. The seller, an old woman with eyes like polished stones, had pressed a crumpled note into Clara's hand, from the Eldridge Fair, 1923. "Take it, but never wind the key." Clara scoffed at the warning superstitions were for fools, she said, but Elias couldn't look away. That night, after the shop closed, he snuck downstairs in his pajamas, the floorboards creaking like old bones under his bare feet. The horse stood on a pedestal by the window, its painted smile frozen in eternal joy, hooves polished to a gleam that caught the lightning's flash. Elias's fingers trembled as he traced the curve of its neck. There, hidden beneath the saddle, was a small brass key, dangling from a chain like a forbidden fruit. Just once, he whispered to himself, heart pounding. The key fit perfectly into the slot on the horse's flank. With a soft click, he turned it. A melody unfurled from within, tinny and haunting, like a music box drowned in a well. It was the calliope tune from the old fair, The Entertainer, but warped, the notes stretching and sighing as if played by ghostly fingers. The horse didn't move, of course. It was just a toy. Elias laughed at his own silliness and scampered back to bed, the melody chasing him up the stairs like a lullaby from the grave. The next morning, Elias woke to find the horse on his bedroom floor. His mother swore she hadn't touched it. "Must have been the cat," she said, though their tabby had been napping on the windowsill all night. Elias shrugged it off and propped Whisper on his desk, right next to his comic books. But as he ate breakfast, he could have sworn he heard a faint whinny from upstairs, a soft, equine snort, like wind through dry reeds. School dragged that day, the classroom air thick with the scent of chalk and impending rain. Elias doodled horses in his notebook, their eyes wide and watchful. When the final bell rang, he raced home through puddles that reflected the bruised sky. The shop was empty, his father was out on a delivery run. Elias bounded upstairs, eager to play. Whisper was gone from his desk. Panic fluttered in his chest as he searched under the bed, in the closet, behind the curtains. Nothing. Then he heard it, the melody again, faint and teasing, drifting from the hallway. Da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. Elias crept out, following the sound like a moth to a flame. It led him to the attic door, which hung ajar, though he'd bolted it shut months ago. The stairs groaned under his weight, dust motes swirling in the slivers of light from a cracked skylight. At the top, in the gloom, sat Whisper. But it wasn't alone. Scratched into the floorboards around it were tiny hoof marks, as if the horse had galloped in circles during the night. Elias knelt, heart hammering, and touched one. The wood was fresh, the grooves sharp and deep. "Impossible," he breathed. As he reached for the toy, the melody swelled, louder now, and Whisper's head turned just a fraction, but enough to make Elias freeze. Those sapphire eyes locked onto his, and for a split second, he saw something move inside them, a flicker, like a shadow darting behind glass. He snatched the horse and fled downstairs, slamming the attic door so hard the frame rattled. That night, he hid Whisper in his toy chest, burying it under action figures and wooden trains. Sleep came fitfully, chased by dreams of fairs under blood-red skies, where children laughed on carousel horses that never stopped turning. By the third night, the hauntings had woven into the fabric of the house. Elias woke to find his bedsheets tangled in intricate knots, as if tiny hands had braided them while he slept. His comic books lay open to pages he'd never read, panels depicting ghostly riders on pale steeds, their faces blurred and screaming. And the melody, oh, the melody. It played at odd hours, during dinner, when forks scraped plates, in the shower, mingling with the hiss of water, at midnight, when the world held its breath. Da-dum, da-dum. Always calling, always closer. His parents noticed, of course. Clara's face grew gaunt, shadows pooling under her eyes. "It's just a phase, love," she told Elias, but her voice cracked like thin ice. His father, pragmatic Tom, examined the horse under the shop's lamplight. "Finally made," he muttered, turning the key despite the note. The tune erupted, wild and frantic, and Tom dropped it as if burned. A blister bloomed on his palm, red and weeping, shaped like a tiny horseshoe. That was when Elias found the first clue. Tucked into the horse's saddle, folded so small it might have been overlooked, was a yellowed photograph. It showed the Eldridge Fair in 1923, cotton candy clouds, laughing crowds, and in the center, a carousel aglow with lanterns. Atop Whisper sat a girl of about 8, her pigtails flying, eyes alight with joy. But her smile. It was wrong. Too wide, too sharp, as if she knew a secret that would curdle milk. On the back, in childish scrawl, Lillian Gray. "She rides forever. Don't wind Whisper. He takes you for a spin." Elias's stomach twisted. Who was Lillian? He begged his parents to research it, but they dismissed it as a prank from the cellar. Desperate, he slipped into the shop after dark, rifling through ledgers under the flicker of a flashlight. Buried in the 1923 entries, "Fire at Eldridge Fair. Carousel destroyed. One child missing, Lillian Gray, age 8. Believed trampled by panicked horses. Body never found." The words blurred as tears stung his eyes. Trampled. Lost in the chaos. Elias imagined her small hand clutching the saddle, the flames roaring, the horses rearing in terror. Had she wound Whisper's key one last time, begging for escape? And now? Now the horse wanted company. Someone to ride with her, forever. That night, the storm broke fully. Rain lashed the windows like claws, wind howling through the eaves. Elias bolted his door, shoved a chair under the knob, and huddled in bed with a blanket over his head. The melody started at once, da-dum from the floorboards beneath him. It grew, vibrating through the house, until the very walls seemed to pulse with it. Then, a new sound, the scrape of hooves on wood. Slow, deliberate, circling his room. He peeked out. Whisper stood in the center of the floor, key turning of its own accord. Click, click, click. The horse's head swiveled, eyes glowing faintly in the dark, and Elias saw her Lillian reflected in the glass. Not a flicker this time, but full, her pigtails matted with soot, her dress torn and singed, her mouth a rictus grin stretched too wide over broken teeth. "Ride with me," she whispered, her voice the calliope's sigh, tinny and eternal. "The fair's starting. Don't be late." Elias screamed, scrambling back, but the door rattled locked from the outside now. The chair toppled as if kicked by invisible hooves. The melody thundered, drowning his cries, and Whisper began to move. Not galloping, but rocking, forward and back, its painted mane whipping like flames. The room spun with it, posters peeling from walls, toys skittering across the floor in a macabre parade. Elias's parents pounded on the door, voices muffled Elias. "Open up." But the key turned faster, the horse rearing on its stand, hooves clacking like bones. He lunged for it, fingers closing around the brass chain. "Stop!" he sobbed, yanking the key free. The music choked off mid-note, a final, gurgling da-dum. Whisper froze, head bowed, eyes dimming to dull glass. Silence crashed in, broken only by his parents' frantic hammering. Elias collapsed, clutching the key like a talisman. As the door flew open, in the morning, they burned the horse in the backyard fire pit. The flames devoured the wood hungrily, but even as it blackened and curled, Elias heard a faint whinny on the wind, a child's laughter, twisted into something feral. The ashes scattered on the breeze, carried toward the old fairgrounds, long overgrown with weeds. Elias never slept soundly again. Some nights, when the moon hung low and the air smelled of smoke and candy floss, he swears he hears it, the distant trill of a calliope, calling his name. "Elias. Ride with me." And in his dreams, he climbs aboard, the world blurring into a carousel of fire and shadow, Lillian's cold hand on his shoulder, whispering, "Forever's just getting started." But that's not the worst part. Last week, while cleaning the shop's backroom, Clara found something in a forgotten crate, a tiny brass key, dangling from a chain. No nameplate. No horse. Just the key, warm to the touch, as if recently turned. And etched on its bow, in elegant, faded script, Elias. The fair's coming back to Eldridge Hollow this October. Tickets are free. But if you hear the music, don't answer. Some rides never end.